You want a few more minutes?
Uh, yeah, I'm ready whenever you.
Okay. Hi everyone. Welcome to DataCon LA. This is the panel on data and government. Today we have Jagjit Dhaliwal, Deputy CIO for the County of LA, along with a respected panelist board, Phillip Leclair, who is the Chief Information Officer of the City of Pasadena, Leah Eriksen, the Director of Technology and Innovation and CIO for City of Long Beach, Jeanne Holm, Chief Data Officer for City of LA, and Kevin Gray, Chief Information Officer at the City of Burbank. I'm going to introduce Jagjit, and then Jagjit will introduce the panelists. Jagjit comes to the county of LA with say 17 plus years of diversified IT consulting experience across multiple industry domains, including media and entertainment. His main focus has been on IT transformations, operations efficiencies, and enterprise initiatives. He has a wealth of experience in supporting complex systems delivery in a global on-site offshore operating environment. Take it off, Jagjit.
Sure. Thanks, Subhash. I think you have already introduced myself. The only thing I will add is since I'm managing a public safety and health departments, one of my key focus area is to ensure the data synergies between different departments. So I lead a couple of county-wide data initiatives as well as the cross-departmental initiatives. So we have a very excellent panel. I think the good synergy between us is we all are part of LA County, and we have very important cities which represent our county, and we have a CIOs from that county. So I'll let actually them individually introduce and maybe talk a little bit about them. Maybe we'll start with Jeanne here.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Jeanne Holm. I'm the Chief Data Officer and Senior Technology Advisor to Mayor Eric Garcetti at the City of Los Angeles. Really glad to be here today. I oversee a whole variety of innovations and open data projects as well as technology projects for the mayor. I'll talk a little bit about those today. Before I came to the city, I spent 30 years at NASA doing knowledge management and advanced systems. We're also spent 6 years with the Obama White House, starting the data.gov activity and initiative for open data at the national level. And then a few years working with the World Bank in Russia, India, and Africa, opening up data and working on pandemics, including Ebola there.
Perfect. Thanks, Jeanne. Kevin?
Yeah, so Jagjit, you really have to start with Jeanne. That's a tough act to follow. My name is Kevin Gray. I'm the Chief Information Officer for the city of Burbank, the media capital of the world. I've been with the city for about 2.5 years. Prior to, I spent many years in entertainment, so not quite carrying the same kind of credentials as you.
Thanks, Kevin. You have a wealth of private sector experience, and always honored to continue working with you in the prior organization as well as this. And I'm not going in any order, so this doesn't represent the city size or the complexity or the capabilities. All 4 cities are very equally important for the county. So maybe Leah, you wanna quickly talk about the Long Beach and your role?
Yes, I'm Leah Eriksen. I'm the Director of Technology and Innovation and the CIO for the City of Long Beach. We are the second largest city in LA County. We also have a very busy port along with the port of LA combined. It's the busiest port in the world. And also we have a health jurisdiction. So we're one of 3 cities in California, Pasadena being the other one, that has our own health jurisdiction. And so that comes in important later when we talk about COVID-19, for example. And then in addition, for my background, I have over 20 years in local government. I'm originally from Ohio, so 16 years with the city of Cincinnati, and my background's budget and finance. Predominantly, I've been in my current role since early 2018, and I lead a team of about 170 people, and I work on the technology strategy and operations for the city of Long Beach. I'm happy to be here.
Perfect. Thanks, Leah. And last but not least, one of my favorites and most innovative person from Pasadena. So Phil, take it away with your introductions.
Hi, thank you, JD. Phillip Leclair. I am the CIO for the city of Pasadena. And, many of you know Pasadena is a organization of about 2,000 employees. We have 150,000 residents, but there's so much in Pasadena. We're a big tourist destination as well as a big financial center. And so there's a lot of going on in Pasadena for being its small population size. We do attract tons of visitors, tons of business who are there. Rose Bowl, the Tournament of Roses, which is unfortunately canceled this year, but please tune in. There will be a special 2-hour tribute to the Tournament of Roses parade. And then hopefully there will be a Rose Bowl game that's still left to be decided. But for me, I've been the CIO for the city for a little bit, about 10 years now. I've been with the city of Pasadena for 10 years. And prior to the city of Pasadena, I was with the city of New York. So I've gone from big cities into small cities. And also I'm like Leah and like Kevin, I'm in charge of all of the technology for the whole city. And our data infrastructure and everything that we want to be doing. And so looking forward to sharing this all with you today. And thank you for DataCon for hosting all of us.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Phil. And as I mentioned that we have one thing in common, that we all are part of LA region. And I'm part of LA County for last almost 3 years, and pretty much all the presentations or webinar or panels, I do feel talking about a little bit of LA County or the region. There are some fascinating facts, which was mind blowing when I joined and when I came to know. I've been living in LA for 10 plus years, but I didn't know those facts. To start with, like we are the most populous county in US, serving 10.3 million people and spanning across 4,700 square miles. I mean, we can easily fit Delaware and Rhode Island within our borders. And we are definitely a most diverse county within the US, and our resident speaks more than 200 languages from all across the world. And the next one, which is very fascinating to me, is with 700 billion GDP, we are the third largest metropolitan economy in the world. And I don't know if you know, if we have to be a country, it will be a 19th largest economy in the world, more than Argentina or Taiwan, as an example. So we are pretty unique, very special in terms of the counties and the cities, especially because of our size, population, and diversity. And the second common thing among all 5 of us is the data. And we interact very often, we talk, we coordinate, we collaborate on various initiatives, and data is one thing which always brings us together. And COVID is the best example for that. So we are running a data-driven organizations. We are using data platforms. We have data governance and a data-driven culture, which is helping us drive all the business decisions across our organizations. So today we're gonna focus all on data, that potentially like what kind of open data platforms we have, what we offer to our residents, and what data platforms and architecture we use behind the scenes to enable that open data, and what kind of interesting projects we have been doing or we are doing in this crisis situation. And while we are enabling all that, what kind of security and privacy concerns which typically comes into picture, and how we address that. So those are the 4-5 themes which we will focus for next 1.5 an hour. So let's start with the open data itself. So talking about open data, pretty much every city and county have their open data portal. Even county has open data portal to share the public data sets. And in fact, we do have 2 county-wide data portals. One is the general one, which has about 400 plus data sets. And then we have GeoHub, which is another 150 data sets, more focused on a geospatial information. And it's a funny fact that the most viewed data set on the county portal is the employee salaries. So I don't know if people are interested in our salaries, or is it that they are not able to find other data sets. So that's one thing which we are trying to find out so that we can improve the portal and make it more efficient. And apart from that, we do have a problem that we do have a lot of departmental open data portals also. So that's where the problem is. It's difficult for the residents to figure out where to go when they are looking for the data. So we completely understand and we have acknowledged that problem. And in fact, that's why county has just launched Open Data 2.0, in which we are redefining how the portal should look like and what all things our county residents or constituents need, and how we can redefine the vision of open data. So that's what kind of happening at a county level. I would let our city representatives share what's going on the ground from their side. Maybe Jeanne, I think we have a largest open data portal from City of LA. Why don't you share us what's on a data.gov and some of the accomplishments which you have done and what kind of challenges you might have been facing?
I'm sure. So I think that there's a lot of things we've accomplished with open data. And I know there's a lot we still want to accomplish. And we're feeling a lot of pressure for those of us, particularly in the government and healthcare right now around COVID. But I just want to start us off with a very positive note that we have, in the last 10 years, freed huge numbers of data sets from governments, city, county, regional, state, and federal, across the United States, across the world. So back in 2009, when I was on the data.gov team, it was really an experiment. We weren't sure that it was going to last at all. We thought maybe 6 months. And we started with 37 data sets and eventually came up to over 300,000 different data sets. And I think that's the kind of growth that we see on a smaller scale, but the same kind of exponential growth where a county or a city might start with a few data sets, just trying it out, seeing who's going to use it. And then we really start to understand there's more data we can free, more data that the taxpayers have paid for that we want to open up. And we also want to make sure we open up that in human and machine readable ways. We also did a study kind of nationally and then more locally around the economic opportunity around open data. Now, as city and county employees, we see the data as something that we've already done, we've already created it. Now we have to maybe clean it up or make it more understandable, put some context around it when we launch it and open it up. But for the consumers, for the businesses and the university researchers and individuals and community-based organizations and advocates and just people interested in what's going on in their neighborhood, they really want to get access to that data. And so when we start to look at the value, it's actually over $3 trillion US value in open data across the country when governments opened this up. And let me just give you two quick examples, again, to try to put some context around this. One is with the NOAA's weather data. So there's tons of different applications and services and news broadcasts that consume the weather data, which is an open data service from NOAA. And the Air Force provides GPS. So how many people have 10, 20, 30 GPS-based apps on their phone? Those are all provided as open data sources from different organizations. In LA, we consume that, right? So we consume those as well. So we have the Shake Alert LA app, which uses sensor data from the US Geological Survey, GPS data, anonymized. I just want to say again, anonymized. So we don't know your location, but we have a 10 square mile grid where you might be. And we can tell you in advance of feeling the shaking, how severe an earthquake's going to be. And that's only because there's bunches of different people in the government ecosystem who have opened that data. And I think the most important piece that we tend to forget is it's not just about businesses consuming the data, and it's not just about us as the government's opening the data and all the back-end processes we're going to talk about today, but it's really about self-empowerment. It's about putting data in the hands of people so that they can advocate for what they want to change in their community, for what they want to champion in their community. Now, in a time of COVID, this is more important than ever so that people can understand what the case fatality rate is, the effect of wearing masks, which is very positive. Please wear your masks, and to be able to help their communities be safer.
Perfect. This is so fascinating. This $3 million value, that's amazing numbers.
Trillion with a T.
That's
3
so 3 trillion, sorry, yeah. Wow, that's amazing. So maybe Leah, you want to touch upon like what kind of data you and we are hosting at Long Beach, and if there are any specific changes or accomplishment recently happened in this area?
Yeah, so the City of Long Beach is very committed to open data. We've had a platform since 2015. We've had a formal policy adopted in 2016, and we recently updated it. We don't quite have as many data sets available as the City of LA. I almost don't even want to say how many. I was about to say it, but it's growing, the number of data sets. We I will say ours are a little bit more reactive. It's based on department, needs and operations more than it really is on what the residents or businesses are asking us for. And that's something that we're working to change. So we recently did have a suggested data set added to our portal, and we've had at least 10 requests for data sets that have come through that avenue. And we also, similar to the city of LA, we're not just providing the data sets, but we're also we're using our data to help tell stories and to inform the public about our operations and our projects. So some recent examples are we have a public art data set that's actually geographically mapped to show all of the public art investments we have here in the city of Long Beach. And then we also have a crime data mapping portal because people do really want to know and see where in their neighborhood, where the crime is. We've also recently, all cities are responsible for collecting stop data for police. And we've made that public for transparency reasons. Even before we finished analyzing that, we decided to be transparent and put that data out there so that our community can see the stop data that's being collected here in Long Beach. One of the things what I've noticed though is it seems though that our data sets are being actually used more by internal departments consuming each other's data more than it's really being used externally by residents or researchers. And so we want to work to change that. And that's one of the things that we're looking ahead at doing is trying to have more of have more data sets and more data sharing and being more proactive about putting data in place so that our residents are informed and educated and then they can use that as Jeanne said, to be empowered.
Sure. And what about the ports? Because I think you may have a very unique data set about the ports and maybe export, import, and anything related to that. That may be unique to the university.
Yeah, so actually I mentioned earlier, I did talk about our port and I am the CIO for the city of Long Beach. The port of Long Beach also has their own technology function in their own website. And so we do have shared technology services, but the port data, I believe, is on their website. It's not included in ours. But that's an example, like people probably wouldn't expect that they would, well, I don't know, maybe they would look to the Port of Long Beach before they would look to the city for the ports data. But kind of to the point you were mentioning about departments having different data sets, that is an example of an improvement that could probably happen.
Perfect. Thanks, Leah. And maybe Phil, how's Pasadena different or similar to other cities? Anything unique which is going on?
Yeah, we're very similar to Leah's story with Long Beach. We started also with open data in 2014, one of the first cities actually in Southern California. And our two major goals, number one was to offer up more transparency to information about what's happening in the city. And that was one of the core tenets of what open data, where open data started from. But the second one was also to connect with our residences and businesses. So like Jeanne talked about, we started it as being a big experiment. Like what would happen if we did release data sets? Who would want to look at them? What are people going to do with them? And how do we sustain it long term? And so now it's been about 6 years of us being a smaller city, hosting different data sets, and we have dozens and dozens posted on our data portal as well. And I think that some of the interesting things that we've put out there have been, for our city, a lot more research-based. So we've had probably our biggest data sets that we get lots of requests for has to do with traffic and transportation. So people, especially I think in Southern California, they really want to know where people are going and how they're getting from point A to point B, what's going on our traffic signals, how many cars are passing through different areas of the city. So there's a huge, rich amount of data that's there. And there's a lot of research that happens, especially in our local universities, who are trying to understand and trying to predict and trying to build the best model for us to alleviate some of our traffic conditions. So that's been a big, huge area for us as we've released. The other one, of course, that I think everyone's been interested in, as you mentioned, JD, has been about salary data. I think salary and employee information, but also around financial information of the city. So those who want to see how the city is spending money, it's been great that we've been able to publish all this rich data so people can actually drill into, all the way down to, the check that's been, released to what vendor and how much and when. So there are some people who are really digging into that information and they find that really useful. There's been a lot of other data sets though, that we're still trying to figure out, like, what is really that important to people. And I think that this is kind of the opportunity areas, especially as a region, that I think that as we mature more, we can get to. And that is that we have tons of operational data, like how our city is running and how's it doing, what permits are being issued and what calls for service, whether it's police or fire, who's reporting about street issues. And other things that cross jurisdictions, because the whole county, so many of our residents and everybody, they drive through our cities. They don't know when they're in LA or when they're in Pasadena or when they're in Burbank or when they're in Long Beach or unincorporated county. And so all of us matter so much that we need to be sharing a lot of our operational data and aggregating it into a place so that it can be used across our whole county. And I think that's one of the future things we're looking at. We're going to get into some of the COVID stuff, I think maybe in a future question, but that's probably also a great new thing. Like Leah mentioned, that Pasadena also has its own health jurisdiction, like the county does and like the city of Long Beach. And so our public health department is collecting lots of information. And because of COVID, unfortunately, but fortunately at the same time, there's been a huge investment in collecting, aggregating, automating, and displaying of information to the public that's being consumed more than a daily basis, probably even hourly, by the press and by the public. And so I think of all of our data sets that I think we've ever published in Pasadena, probably our COVID data sets are the number one data sets that have been consumed by anybody. And I think long-term though, I think all those operational data sets, like this COVID data set, needs to connect with a county data set, and it does today. But I think that some of our other data sets about how the city is running, so that our neighbors in Burbank and Glendale and Long Beach and others, we're sharing data across jurisdictions. And I think that will eventually provide lots more opportunities for new applications that could cover all of the whole region, and a lot of more great analyses that could happen, because we are all affected by what's going on, no matter what jurisdiction we're in.
Right. Now, I'm glad you touched upon the COVID data, and especially with county as a public health, and then Pasadena and Long Beach, their public health data. So data aggregation is always a big challenge. And I think all of us are facing that challenge, how to do the top, bottom and the bottom up aggregation of all the data and providing right, transparent information to our residents. So that's one big area which we always try to figure out, that how we can improve the quality of data and how we can standardize the data so that we can exchange data in a seamless manner and then make the aggregation as easy as possible. And Kevin, you came from a private sector, so this open data wasn't our concept, which we used to have a lot. But coming from there, and Burbank is a city of millennial with entertainment, media and entertainment hosting companies there. What's unique over there? Any specific open data challenges or the data sets you are seeing apart from COVID?
Well, I'll first say that I think our open data sets that seem to be the most popular are financial data sets, and GIS data sets, by the way, and also crime data, as Leah mentioned earlier, especially this year. But Burbank is really two cities in one, right? It is the media capital of the world. We do have almost all of the media located in our small city, but it's also a small town. And it's really the small town residents that drive the politics of the city. And so my biggest challenge has been to really convince the city, get the city to understand the value of using data to improve quality of life for our citizens. And it's only recent that I've gained some traction on that. When I first got to the city a couple of years ago, data wasn't really a consideration in many things. But for us now, it's really a key foundation in our business outcome driven enterprise architecture. So we consider data in everything that we do now going forward. Now, we face all of the challenges that everybody else faces, I think, in terms of the different silos of data that we have throughout the city, and really trying to bring all of that together, aggregate that, and find ways to present it to the public in a way that is valuable to them is what we're struggling with today.
Interesting. So Burbank has always been my favorite city. I've spent 10 plus years, so it's always close to me. So, but I think the one common thing which I'm hearing is, by the way, within the county, we just launched our Open Data 2.0, as I mentioned, and we did our first workshop where we invited external partners to help us identify what kind of data needs they have. And I'm glad to hear that it's a very similar to the data sets which all of you have referred. Financial data came up as like one of the top need. Transportation, sustainability theme I'm seeing coming up a lot in our conversations. Environmental data, the traffic data. And then the crime was another big one, which was there in our conversation. But thing is, in order to enable the open data, that's from a front, it probably might be looking pretty easy that why counties and cities may be having a challenges enabling that data sets. So in order to do that, it's the foundation behind the scene. What are the data platforms and the architecture we have in place, which enable this real-time or near real-time data sets, which we can make it enable for our residents. So it's all behind the scene. It's all about a data architecture and platform, which can help us aggregate different data sets and integrate it, analyze it, and then come up with the synthesized data sets, which we can publish. So at a county, actually, when it comes to the data platforms, we have 40 plus departments, and some of the departments have I mean, pretty much every department is at a different maturity level from architecture perspective. At a county level, there is one initiative which is worth mentioning is our county-wide information hub, in which what we are doing is we are interconnecting all the departments' data and bringing in the residents' identities from different departments and able to connect that so that we can identify the unique residents and then link those services. So through this information hub, we were able to identify 20 million plus unique records, which actually helps us give a lot of great insights. To give an example, like between 2015 to 2019 data, when we analyzed, we were able to identify that 1.34 million individuals actually touched our justice system. And out of that 1.34 million, about 132,000 people have a history of homelessness. And out of that, 110,000 have a history of severe mental illness. So that kind of insights help us make a right interventions that if we solve X problem, it can potentially help us solving all that other problems which are associated with it. So that kind of data insights help us make a right decisions at the county. And I would be very curious to hear what kind of data platforms, modernization efforts, or any recent modernization which has been done at a city level and how we are aggregating our what kind of architecture principles we may be following. And I was just looking at a time, maybe we'll spend 2 to 3 minutes each. Let's try to knock down a theme in a 15 minutes or so. And maybe last time Jeanne started, maybe Phil, you want to start this time with Pasadena? Any
Sure.
specific architecture or platform insights you would like to share from your side?
Well, this is evolving, so unfortunately, it isn't one that it's working for all systems. But where we have put a lot of our investment, time, resources, and energy has been around GIS. Since so using ArcGIS services, so our open data platform is actually hosted on ArcGIS online. It wasn't there before, but we ended up having so many data sets that are geospatial reference points that and then working with Esri, we've been able to move all kinds of data sets into it. But more importantly, that platform has been able to expand tremendously, especially around the city municipalities, to be able to create kind of operational dashboards and bringing not only GIS and other tabular data, but also real-time data sets from other applications, especially online, the applications that have different APIs, to bring them together for us to see things all within a one pane of glass. An example I've talked about over the last couple of years has been around our fire department operations dashboard, where we have calls for service that are multi-jurisdictional. We have Metro Gold Line that goes through Pasadena and their locations. We have GPS coordinates for our public safety vehicles. And we also have, because of our, Rose Parade and other big events that go on in Pasadena, we have weather, we have, Twitter and social media feeds, and all this is coming into kind of one area so that we can have better management decisions that are going on. A lot of this has to do, using REST APIs and other XML-based integration points where we're collecting information from things that we subscribe to, or data sets we're getting from other systems that we may be subscribers for them, or that we're creating ourselves. So it's kind of a hodgepodge mix. And so I think that to make a lot of data sets useful, at least operationally, we're exploring not only the Esri version of this, but also some of our custom, and also working with third parties are doing the same thing. Is there isn't like a one size fits all that will work for everybody. But the more that we can bring these data sets together, then the more we can create those APIs that external parties, like people who may be interested in these data sets, can actually consume the same information and see what we see.
Perfect. No, thanks. That's very helpful. And I believe even Kevin, I think we were having conversations about the architecture. The enterprise architecture is one of the focus area at Burbank. Is that your data architecture aligned with the overall enterprise architecture strategy which you have in place?
Well, align is probably not the right word. I think for us, it's really core to it. So our data strategy is really core to all of our enterprise architecture planning now. For this year, one of our key initiatives has been to, and we're currently working on this, building a hybrid data and process integration platform, or combined set of platforms, whether it be leveraging existing ESB that we have, APIs, as Phillip leveraged, to whatever method we take, with ETL, whatever method we take for really integrating processes and data across all of our siloed systems is really core and key to everything that we're doing. So as an example, one of our initiatives this year is a new case management platform for our city attorney's office. But in the planning for the deployment of that, integration with police data and the police systems is core to core to what we're doing. And then determining how we'll automate making the open availability of the data that we should is really key to that planning also.
Perfect. No, that's good to hear that it's the overall architecture is core to your overall countywide or citywide enterprise architecture. And Jeanne, you as a chief data officer, you must be dealing with the technology and all the modernization efforts day in, day out. Would you like to share some of the interesting data projects, architecture projects which are going on?
Sure. So we have like you, we have two public facing portals, which we're working on having a federated search across right now. So I'll share that with you when we solve it. But we have a Socrata based open data portal that has most of our open data sets. And then we also have a rather large repository of GIS data on an Esri open data portal. So you can get to both of those. Both of them, there's open APIs for each of our data sets on the Socrata, and then the Esri maps are shared as layers. So it's really easy for people who are familiar with ArcGIS or Esri to put things together in meaningful ways. We're just about to relaunch the open data portal, which will make it easier for people to kind of see some of the things we're focusing on right now around looking at police use of force, homelessness, connectivity and the digital divide, home, homelessness around COVID. So looking at eviction threats and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of kind of story-based, either story maps or stories that help to put context around the data. And then like Leah, we can all, people can suggest a data set, and we do that in a couple of different ways. There's social media, there's on the portal itself, and then we do a lot of community engagement. Oh my gosh, so much community engagement, particularly with our chambers of commerce, small businesses and entrepreneurs, but also we have a lot of data literacy training that we do for community-based organizations and nonprofits. And so that's been really helpful. We also just this year stood up a data analytics platform, which is really meant more inside the city. So again, like Long Beach, you know, a lot of our data is also consumed internally. And so, you know, transportation needs to know what Streets LA is doing for paving and syncing those schedules. And so we have an internal Civis platform that we share data and do analysis. And then we do both Power BI and Tableau for a lot of visualization pieces. I think some of the things that it's important to understand is that we have all these different platforms, but at the end of the day, people need access to data, and we need to help give data literacy internal training to our own staff to make sure that they can identify data that could be open it in a way that's both ethical and protects people's privacy. We have a code of ethics that's getting published in the next 2 weeks and a digital bill of rights. And then being able to promote that out to the community and then engage with folks, like, you know, listen to what people need to have and have these contextual conversations. And, you know, Data for Good is a component here at DataCon LA. So a huge shout out to Subhash and Jagjit, you're on the advisory board too. And so we're doing data literacy programs that I think help to inform what all of us as cities can do when we talk about social justice or the media. So shout out to Burbank. You know, how are people consuming the data and what kind of data they need? And so I think that's really kind of the helpful piece, is that it's a conversation as opposed to just a broadcast. Like, we're not a television station, we're a social media platform.
That's nice. And Leah, I know that there are a lot of smart city initiatives and upgrade programs which are going on in Long Beach. Long Beach is always leading when it comes to innovation. So you want to share some insights? Are there latest platform upgrades which has happened, or anything which is upcoming which might be for interest for our audience?
Sure. So the city of Long Beach is very similar to Pasadena in that we have our main platform is our Esri GeoHub product. And we also have financial data in OpenGov. And one of our challenges is we use a lot of ETL tools and batch processing to get the data into those reporting tools. But we have all these different data marts and transactional databases. And so it's not efficient. And so what we are working towards is more large-scale modernization of our backend systems, including adopting cloud-based data platforms and demanding well-documented APIs of our vendors. And then some of our successes has really been on the COVID-19 side, where we're really leveraging our Power BI for analytics and doing things like Python-based data processing and using PostgreSDB for data storage and aggregation, and Apache Airflow for building data pipelines, so that we could get data from all these different sources into a dashboard that it has relevant and informative data for our residents and decision makers. So and to do all of that, we formed this data strike team that came together, a 10-person team that came together from across city departments, including a handful in our department, working together. And that model, I think, is going to be great because we have now the internal human infrastructure in place so that we can use that to tackle other problems and other data sets. So I'm excited about what's coming with our data capabilities here in the city of Long Beach.
Right. And it's so important for all of us, because if all the cities and counties are modernizing their platforms, then we can also enable that interconnectivity between it. because I think Phil and Jeanne brought about the data aggregation, especially within the COVID. So if we have those platforms which have that interoperability enabled, so we actually can aggregate the COVID data pretty quickly. So there's a lot to be done in that space. I think all five of us will be pretty busy upgrading and uh, taking insights from the COVID scenarios and how we're going to continue enhance our platforms and architecture. So since I'm pretty sure we will have a lot of audience from technical data background and they may be curious to hear what kind of innovative projects we are doing, why don't we shift gears and let's talk about something really exciting. Why don't we each of us share what's the best or the innovative project which must be happening? And maybe Phil, I'll start with you since you are close to Caltech. So share something exciting or really nerdy, which might be really very interesting for our audience.
Sure. Well, I have two. One that I'll let some others talk about because I think the COVID-19 data sets are, like I said before, really important and they're being used a lot. And it has shaped a lot about how our public health department has really dived into data a lot more than they did before and sharing. But also, I think it has created some issues as well because there's a story to be told and there's a lot of data and there's a lot of information and there's a lot of interpretation about what it all means. And so I think it's been a struggle for these last few months, especially when we started up trying to get this date, hourly data posted, but now it's there, but it's continually being refined and expanded. So, I've been impressed with LA County's COVID website. They partnered, I think, with USC to help them structure information in different ways and have lots of tabular information. But I'll tell you that the most questions that I personally get about COVID is that people want more of the raw data. And we're trying to get out more information, but there's so much behind what each data set means and what it means from a public health perspective and the story that they're trying to convey and have people understand. And so it's been difficult to really provide a lot of the raw information, even between cities and the county. We've asked for, and I've tried to help connect people to get to the raw information, just even in a tabular form, like an Excel spreadsheet or an API or something. And the health personnel aren't ready to really release that yet because it's still changing a bit on what they mean and what it means as this time goes. But anyway, so we can get more in COVID if people have questions about COVID. But one of the other ones I wanted to mention is about Caltech. And Pasadena and Caltech have been collaborating for over a year now on what we call a fiber array. The city of Pasadena has a fiber optic network that goes around the city that supports a number of corporate entities like Caltech and JPL. And we also support all of our data networking connectivity between all our facilities. And through a collaboration with Caltech, the Seismo lab there, we have secured a National Science Foundation, I think I said that right, NSF grants, to actually study the vibrations that go on underground in our fiber optic network that were intended to look at intensity of earthquakes. But in the early pilots, and as we've worked with Caltech on this, they've been able to see earthquakes that have happened. Let's say, I remember it was Hawaii a few years ago, a few years ago, 18 months to 2 years ago. They could see the wavelength of a earthquake that took place in Hawaii, and as it got to the wavelength got into the Los Angeles basin, and with the goal of this big, huge data collection, because they're able to have every meter of our fiber optic network is actually a sensor, versus the way that earthquake sensors happen today. There's only I think there's like maybe a dozen or so in Pasadena, and there's a number of them sprinkled around our region. But now imagine every meter of fiber optic network across the whole city. We've been able to have a 1,000 times amount of sensors, and it's supposed to show intensity of shaking at the neighborhood level. and the bedrock and the sand and everything else below the surface, the soil is different in different parts, neighborhoods across our whole region. And so the goal of Caltech in this study was to see what would be the shaking that would occur in certain areas of Pasadena, with the goal that if there was a really big earthquake, that we would be able to send out the right kind of personnel to help deal with the issues. And we would know a lot more without having to get a visual inspection. We could see where the massive shaking could occur on a micro level. And then more recently, the last Rose Parade event that happened just in January, they did the same study along Colorado Boulevard where the parade, most of the parade route is on, and they could actually see the floats that are moving down the street. And they could, and they were exploring not only where the floats were and the gaps between the floats, but also the weight of floats as they were crossing down the street. And so their ideas are starting to percolate, and we're talking to our transportation department and our public works, because maybe there's a lot more information even beyond earthquakes that can be extrapolated from all this huge amount of big data that's coming as a result of all the vibration and measurements that are happening within a fiber optic network. And so what I'm really excited about from a data analytics perspective, and I know Caltech is running through all kinds of data and they're massaging and moving it around, but we're talking about how we can either aggregate or simplify some of this information and make this somewhat public, because I think that this could have a lot of great applications, not just in Pasadena, but actually worldwide, where anywhere where fiber exists. So that's one of the examples of some cool initiatives that we're working on with Caltech directly.
Really fascinating. Fiber array. And in case, I'm not sure if there is anything public, you want to paste the link, or whenever it is something which we can share with our audience, that could be really good.
I don't have the data.
And I know, Jeanne, you are.
There's a lot of
Sorry.
press releases that
Yeah.
have to do a search.
Yeah. No, thanks, Phil. Thanks for sharing this. Great to see that innovation, especially in partnership with our academia, which is play a big role in our area. And I know, Jeanne, you are a big fan of AI and ML. I'm pretty sure there must be a lot of AI work happening in City of LA. So I'd love to hear your story.
Sure, and I'll just be brief. I'll talk about two kind of interrelated projects. One is funded, and we do a lot of grant work to be able to do more basic research that's not funded by the taxpayers, but is funded by grants. So one is with the Toyota Mobility Foundation around pedestrian safety. And we're using existing cameras. So you can't do facial recognition. These are super old cameras, but cameras that look around traffic intersections to help modulate traffic. And they're tied into our automated traffic control system. And so what we're doing is we're counting the number of scooters, wheelchairs, pedestrians, bikes, push carts, strollers that come in vicinity of an intersection, and that might trigger a need for extra time for people to cross the street. This is particularly important for our folks who are in wheelchairs. And so we do this in a way that accommodates it automatically. There's no need to kind of do anything at the terminal level. So that's been really helpful. So that's using machine learning and computer vision. And then we kind of built up a little bit from that with a new NASA grant that looks at air quality data. So this is at airquality.lacity.org. And so the goal here is, and Leah and I have some connections on this project, is to predict the air quality, which we can't really do very well today, but be able to do it up to 10 days or even further in advance anywhere on the globe. Starting here in Los Angeles, we're combining satellite data from NASA satellites with ground data sensors from our very scattered and non-homogenized Internet of Things sensors across the ground. We're working with Air Quality Management District, with the State Air Quality Board, with Purple Air, with SafeCast, a whole bunch of different sensor groups, Smart Air LA, which is a project that Leah and I are both involved in. And the goal here is to be able to aggregate and connect all that data in as near real time as possible to not only complement for areas where we don't have good coverage today. So kind of going back to what Phillip was saying about wanting to get neighborhood level data, but then also being able to work with Anthem Blue Cross and the Southern California Asthma Association to be able to provision that data in ways they can give to the people that they're taking care of. So we don't want people's private data, obviously, and we aren't going to make health recommendations, but our data will be able to be used for other health providers to augment. And then we're doing this with cities around the globe. So this is part of an international effort, and we're always looking for sister cities, but folks who can help us, because the NASA data covers everywhere. And then the last piece is just a completely different project, which is building off of our Data Science Federation, which is a coordination with 18 local universities that brings students and professors in to work with city problems and challenges from departments. This is open to all the cities who are on this call, any city in LA County. And this project is around the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So we look at those, which is normally a national effort. We look at those from a city perspective because, as you pointed out, Jagjit, at the beginning, LA County is a big place. We are the 19th largest economy in the world. And so we bring in a very diverse group of students from lots of different backgrounds to help give us a different perspective on what it means to have a good quality of life, how we fight poverty, hunger, equity, racial justice, social climate action, and how we measure and manage the work that we're doing. So those are just some of the exciting things we're doing.
You always have a new example, so I feel envy. This is really good. If you don't mind pasting the URL which you mentioned, I missed noting it down. I don't know if you can share it with our audience. I think that will be really great. And Leah, I know Long Beach, we have done a lot of COVID-related initiatives, and any smart city related, any project would you like to share?
Yeah, well, yeah, first I'll
One
start
of your
with
favorite?
Yeah, well, I'll start with the COVID data just because, that was something where we started with very little data being produced online, and now it's evolved to, a 5-page platform, dashboard, which includes disaggregated data by race, ethnicity, and geography and age. And we're doing that in part to illustrate how the pandemic is disproportionately burdening communities of color in Long Beach and draw attention to that. And then also so that we can also change our decision making to help address that. So we did some regression analysis to identify that census tracts that had a higher percentage of households speaking languages other than English had a higher case burden, as well as census tracts with a higher percentage of individuals in service industry occupation have a higher case burden, which, as you know, since they were the frontline workers out there being at risk, that's not too surprising. And so from that, we made a concerted effort to have mobile testing and to do it in communities which have the most impact. We also use data, we partner with Zen City to look at social media data and news media data and understand what people are thinking about our education campaigns related to wearing a mask and things like that. And based on that, we changed our messaging to try to say, do your part, and explain the benefit and the importance of wearing a mask to help contribute to safety here in Long Beach. So at the, and to get to the point of the dashboards that, I was talking about, we had to develop data sharing agreements with the state of LA, the state of California, county of LA, and with skilled nursing facilities and hospitals. And so an awful lot of work went into that. And we have to make sure that we're thinking about privacy though. So, because we're talking about people's health data and so we built that with privacy in mind. And our smart city work that you were alluding to is something also that we're proud of. And we're working we have tons of smart city projects already, including things like eco totems that count pedestrians and bikers and other things and set up in a couple areas of our cities. But before we do more, we want to make sure that we have principles and guidelines in place, and including data privacy, so that we make sure that we're being very thoughtful of the projects we're implementing and how we're being transparent with the data, that we're making sure we don't have discriminatory algorithms in place, that privacy is key, and that we're using it to design for equity, which is really important. So Jeanne and I we've talked a lot about digital inclusion, that's also part of our base too, because with all these smart city projects and with all the benefits that can come out of use of data and our emerging technology tools, if our residents are not connected to the internet and don't have devices or digital literacy skills to use these things, they're going to be further left behind, and we're going to have more disproportionate impacts in the future. So basically, I'm excited about that project, our COVID work. And the other one I was going to talk about, when you were mentioning the pulling the data from the different departments together in LA County to look at criminal data and homelessness, et cetera. We have a similar project called the Justice Lab, where we were combining health department data, fire department data, police department data, and our city prosecutor, and looking at repeat chronic offenders of low-level crimes that really are nonviolent. And we found that over half of the people were committing 14 or more offenses were people experiencing homelessness, and they had this cycle of going from the streets to the hospitals, using ambulances to jail. And so based on that data analysis, we've designed some interventions to help reduce that and break that cycle and be proactive in getting help for those residents. So that's another exciting one, and I'll make sure to include the link to the Justice Lab in the chat.
Sure. No, thanks for sharing that. And in fact, if anyone in the audience is specifically interested in the smart cities related insights from Long Beach, actually Rayan from Leah's team, along with Jerry Power from I3, I think immediately after this, there is a session on that subject where they will touch upon smart city and how IoT is enabling a lot of smart city initiatives. So more to come in that session. And over to you, Kevin. No pressure. The bar is really high with a lot of innovative projects. Love to hear what's going on in Burbank. One of your favorite project?
Yeah, fair enough. I'll talk about I think one of my favorite things that we're working on, and maybe this has something to do with my my media background. For me, one of the most exciting things we're working on around data is around video data. So, we've got various disparate video solutions siloed around the city, building control cameras, traffic cameras, license plate readers. Of course, there's videos posted online. And one of the things we're currently working on is how do we bring all of that video data together? We bring it together and then find ways to apply analytics and AI around it to recognize forms and patterns, to identify situations that maybe could be acted upon to improve quality of life for our citizens. AI around alerting PD to unusual patterns of movement that may require dispatch, or other things like that. So really the work that we're doing around video is very exciting to me. We're just getting started, but we've got some really big plans on how we're going to find ways to use the video data that we have and to maybe create more to make things better for us in the city.
That could be a very interesting project. Love to be in touch with it, because even in cities, we are actually exploring a similar solution for our beaches and harbors for PCH, and I'm pretty sure Leah would have a similar needs for her area. So definitely, I think the video streaming and identifying, reading the number plates, and potentially maybe using these technologies in a smart parking solutions. So definitely there is a synergy there, which will continue to enable.
Yeah.
Perfect. So that actually, and Leah brought up the privacy aspect. So especially in the COVID situation, when we have enabled telework and our digital adoption have increased significantly, one of the big challenge or big focus area within county is about the security, the cyber security of the data. And then Jeanne touched about the privacy of it, whether we collect anonymized or unanonymized data, and how we are ensuring that we maintain the right regulations around the PII data which we may be collecting. So privacy and security is a big focus area for any of our jurisdiction. So I think if we can touch, maybe we can spend next 10 minutes on that, and then that will give us another 20 minutes for our Q&A. So maybe Jeanne, I'll start with you. I think last time we were chatting about you were doing specifically on a code of ethics, the digital bill of right. You want to share some of the insights that how we are ensuring that we are strengthening our security and our privacy aspects of the data?
Sure. So we are finishing the draft. Well, we finished the drafts. We're going actually through an external peer review on Tuesday of our digital bill of rights, which is what people can expect, kind of what's happening to their data with the city of Los Angeles, and a code of ethics, which is really kind of how we approach system work and system architecture and data privacy as we build systems, we operate systems, we create algorithms, and we manage that data, and what we also hold our vendors accountable for. So, this is a step forward. There's things that have happened in the past, obviously, in cities all across the country, all across the world, where there's been algorithmic bias, intentional or unintentional. Data gets gathered and then doesn't get updated. Things happen. And so it's not meant to be that these kinds of efforts, and Long Beach is going through the same sort of thing, are perfecting things. I think it's trying to make it better and trying to make it more transparent and have a better open engagement about that. We were just admitted to the Global Open Government Partnership just last week. And so this will also be a group that helps us, as well as our work with the city's Coalition for Digital Rights, which is an international group under the UN that looks at these kinds of issues. So we've been really grateful to Leah and everybody else who's been working in this area, the ACLU, Sunlight Foundation, and others who are helping us to kind of be more transparent and better around this. And then I think just, kind of the rigor in which we all ensure that data is handled, anonymized, and sort of cleansed of the private data as it starts to get shared more broadly. We've all been living this in COVID as we're trying to understand case fatality rates. And Jagjit, I think the county, particularly because we deferred the county public health. I know Long Beach has their own, and I think Pasadena too.
Right.
But, kind of the contact tracing piece, it comes to play. I think the other aspect of this is really how we make sure that data gets anonymized, even when we have data sharing agreements with university partners that might be looking at wanting to do a deeper dive. And what we say, look, we're not going to share PII data, personally identifiable data, even if we know it. Like, we know who we gave a parking ticket to, and we know the license number of the car, but we're not going to share that, like, revealing data. And I think it's just really important that we kind of walk forward into that very transparently with folks.
Thanks for sharing. I think the same, even at a county level, it's very similar efforts, especially when we enable the telework for 60,000 plus employees. We are actually seeing a surge in terms of the cyber attacks. And we have actually really beefed up our phishing attempt and training and education to all our employees. And we, in fact, recently upgraded our multi-factor authentication for our identity solutions. So yes, cybersecurity and the cyber aspects, we have really strengthened it up. And as you touched upon the anonymized data, even though we have our sharing agreements, ensuring that when we are sharing the data, how we can ensure that it's used for that specific use case, and having a right data stewards around those data sets is very, very important for us too. Maybe Kevin, you want to share any thoughts, anything different, or what kind of data agreements you have in place, or any specific efforts going on in this direction?
Not different, but I'll say for us, privacy and availability really are the key drivers for our cybersecurity risk management framework. So it's key and core to us. So everything that we're doing from a security perspective is really based around privacy and availability to make sure that our systems remain availability, and in the case of some sort of attack that might be geared towards trying to bring our systems down or take us offline.
Mhm. Sure. And Leah, I think in Long Beach, you were working on data privacy work, right? Would you like sharing
I-
some insights from that?
Yes, yeah. And similar to the City of LA, the City of Long Beach is also a member of the city's Coalition for Digital Rights. In fact, there are only 14 cities in the United States, I believe, that are currently members. So I would encourage, all cities to look at that. And I'm really proud of the work that we've been doing. And I mentioned this earlier on data privacy. In addition to our standard cybersecurity and information security practices, we are working on developing data privacy guidelines that will help operationalize some of our values of transparency, accountability, and non-discriminatory use of data into the way we operate and in our procedures with how we handle data and how we share data and how we use data, including the appropriate use of data, anonymization, retention policies, et cetera. And the reason why, though, this is so important, it's really a balance and a trade-off between the data privacy, but then also the convenience of if making that data available and used to develop smart city projects that can be very helpful to residents and workers. I think there's going to have to be like a trade-off, and we have to make sure too that like we're not so restrictive on our data and not having it not be available that we can't unlock the benefits of the data. And so it's definitely a balancing act. And then also something that we want to make sure that we're being open about to our residents. So we might not be able to get their permission every time we use their data. We want to let them know this is how we use your data, and that's what the data privacy guidelines are intended to be for. And you had mentioned also the panel next, which is Ryan Kurtzman, who's our Smart Cities program manager. And that's also related to our work with the I3, the consortium, the Intelligent IoT Integrator. And that's an example where data sets are going to be made available that can be benefiting multiple use cases regionally. And we embrace that and we want to participate in that, but we also want to make sure that the data that we provide is also in accordance with the data privacy guidelines that will be adopted by our city in the next few months.
All right. Thanks, Leah. And in fact, the common theme I'm seeing is it's a tough balance between the transparency and the privacy. And Phil, I'm sure you must be facing the same challenge. And if you want to share some of your thoughts on that, how Pasadena is addressing this.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the examples that everyone else has brought up about how it's difficult are for sure there. But some things just for the audience. I mean, what we're talking about here is just think of, like, say, we've been talking about COVID a lot. And in our public health departments, people want to know real specifics about where are the cases, what kind of information about them can you tell us? Where are they located? And we have requests like down to if we would just give people addresses and and information about where people live. That's what people want. But we know that is getting too detailed, too specific, and we need to preserve the privacy of the people, of the situations that they're going through, and that affects us in a smaller city because we have to find ways of anonymizing. And so in a smaller city, let's say in one block radius, you could, if there was only one case, you could start to zero in, like, wait a minute, there's been a case on this block. And so you're getting a little bit too much information, especially if you're giving them that they're, over like 65, or they are male, or you start giving other attributes and you can zero in too close. So finding where that balance is of how transparent you can be, and how much aggregation you can do to provide relevant data sets is what our biggest challenges right now. And besides health, I think the other one that comes up over and over again is around crime information. We've all talked about crime statistics as something that people really want to see and look at, but the same thing applies. If there's a case, an investigation happening someplace, the cities aren't going to give the exact address information of where a call for service took place for, let's say, a burglary. we're going to anonymize it as much as possible, and then it gets aggregated with larger data sets that can be utilized for various purposes. But it's a constant tug and push and pull. We have the people who want the information, but then we also have lots of advocates who want to make sure that it is private. And those of us who are on this panel, I think we're all faced with, and we're all being pulled into conversations where we have to kind of help figure what that is exactly. And it is an art. It's not a science. And there's going to be some, mistakes and issues along the way. But I'll tell you that those of us on this panel talking about data, we want to see more of the data sets out there and utilized because we understand its value. But we also have to bring alongside with us those business areas that are creating the data, like in our health department or in our police department or in our utilities and other areas, who use that data for different reasons. And we have to help them see how that data can be useful in changing our communities and changing the business that they're running, the services that they're delivering. And that is going to take a lot of time. And we've been working on all that for, I don't know, the past 5 or 6 years since open data kind of first started up. So it's a hopeful message, not trying to be negative, but finding that balance and getting great examples out there, inspiring others is really a big part of our jobs. And everyone on who's listening to this, should be asking for information and helping us build the use case that allows us to release certain data sets that you may otherwise not be able to be seen.
Right. No, thanks, Phil. Really appreciate sharing that insights. So there's one theme which I would say I did not explicitly ask the question, but if we hear about all the questions and the answers which all of you shared, it is about the data-driven culture, because it's not about just enabling the platforms or just having a data sharing agreement and technology. So there is a lot goes in the culture itself. It's about enabling that data mindset in each and every employee of our organization and even our leadership, that how they can use this data to make their business decisions and how we can link our business strategies with a matrix and the OKRs and the KPIs, which actually we can track and quantify. In fact, I heard a very interesting quote today. I'll just thought of sharing it because it's very well aligned with this theme. They will listen to you because you are going to have a data and everyone else in the room is going to have opinions. So if you don't have a data, it is just an opinion. So you really need to have a data, and that's what we all are enabling. And we do have a lot of accomplishments, but at the same time, there are a lot of challenges which we face in our cities and counties. And that is the reason all of our audience, you must have seen all 5 of us partner with various private partners, as well as the various opportunities where we can interact with external partners. DataCon LA, Data for Good, these are some of the organizations where we spend additional time just to ensure that we connect with the community, because we would like to have a talent, we would like to have a partners who can help us solve these complex social economic problems. And we are redefining our classification so that we can hire that kind of talent. So we always look for that data talent. It's very difficult to get that right talent. So feel free to reach out to any one of us if you have suggestions. And as you can see that we work hand in hand, be it a city or a county. End of the day, we all are serving for the LA region. And we all have a one common mission to make LA County or LA region as the most innovative region, and how we can enable it for the upcoming Olympics, how we can compete with potentially other innovative regions like San Francisco and other smart cities. So, and data gonna play a big role in that. So with that, I'll take a pause, and Andrew, I might need your help. Apologies, I'm not able to see the questions. Maybe if you could read the questions and one of us can answer that. So maybe we'll spend next 15 minutes on a Q&A.
Sure. Our first question is by Nicole Wilson. What entities, organizations are you currently sharing data with, i.e. city departments, counties, state departments, schools, etc.? She also has 3 follow-up questions. Do you combine the open data sets with your internal departmental county-wide data warehousing to run analytics? How are you keeping all of that data clean and up to date? And our follow-up question, are there costs associated with hosting the open data?
Yeah, there are multiple questions. I'll try to answer a few of them, and team, please feel free to jump in. So last question first, that's easy to answer. Yes, there is a cost. So there is a cost of the platform and in fact, the hosting as well as maintaining that data. So, and in terms of connecting that data with the department or the county-wide platforms. So currently, as I mentioned, that we are launching our Open Data 2.0, and that's a one big challenge, which at least I feel is on the ground, is actually finding out the right quality of data and then pushing that data to the open data portal. Right now there is a lag, so it's not a real time or not even close to the near real time. The lot of data which is stale, and that's something which we have acknowledged, and that's what we are trying to work upon as we are upgrading our data platforms, which is behind the scene, how we can have a real-time feed to our open data portal so that the residents can get a real-time data as much as possible. And when it comes to sharing the data, it's all of the above. So we do report back to the state and Fed. We aggregate that data there, and we work with the cities where we share data. In fact, collect data also. And external agencies like LASA, we work, United LA, we work with them for like our homelessness kind of initiatives. So based on different initiatives, we partner and share data, and all pretty much is driven through the data sharing agreements if it is not the open data. And then the other channel which I see where is a lot of data requests comes in is a PRAs. So we do get a lot of PRAs from different constituents, and we respond to those PRAs with the data sets. So those are some of the examples. Maybe anyone in the panel would like to add anything?
Sure. We have data sharing agreements with open data and sometimes data that hasn't been yet released with our universities as part of our Data Science Federation, our Data Angels programs. We try to make sure that we release as much of that data as soon as we're prepping it to be open. We do provide near real-time data. Our 311 data, for example, is updated every 20 minutes on our open data portal. Because we just know that for a lot of people, some data is very timely. And we're looking at, more real-time data around mobility data as well. And then I think that the other piece of the cost is there's a cost to normalizing and cleansing and putting context around data that might normally be understood for internal use. And so that's something we need to train our own workforce with, so that they're adhering to certain standards and that it's written in an understandable human and machine readable way. And so I think there's a piece there. All of it is so worth it, though. So I mean, don't let the intricacies and the back end, sausage making part of it, like make you think that we don't want to do this and that we're not dedicated to this work. It's just there is work to be done for it, and to make sure that it continuously is supportive of what people need.
Sure. Thanks, Jeanne. Thanks for adding it. Anyone else would like to add? If it is similar, otherwise then we can take up next question. Okay. Andrew?
Will the rise in cases in COVID across California, how can data help fill in the gaps, especially when it comes to schools, colleges, and universities? And that question was from Terry Davids.
Okay. I mean, I can chime in, but maybe Phil or Leah, you want to talk about the public health and how we are using the data? If you want to touch upon?
Well, yeah, I mean, one thing is in our city, we originally had a lot of data that was internal use only. And we realized that there was a benefit of sharing that externally because people needed to know that information to help make decisions, about their own health and whether or not they want to risk going to eat out at a restaurant or at this point now outdoor gatherings are allowed with no more than 3 households, et cetera. So, the university, the city of Long Beach works very, very closely with our colleges and university, Long Beach City College and Cal State University Long Beach. And there was actually an outbreak recently at Cal State University Long Beach. And they were able to identify that outbreak pretty quickly. It stemmed from an off-campus party, a gathering that was definitely not sanctioned. And then they actually locked down all the on-campus students, and they had to be quarantined. So I think seeing that emerging data come out, the university made a very quick decision to lock it down, and that was pretty dramatic. Everyone was quarantined, whether or not they were a close contact, but that helped definitely make sure that it didn't continue to spread. And then in general, like the Long Beach or Unified School District is also looking at data when they're making decisions about online learning versus bringing people back into the classroom. So even though right now we do allow applications for exceptions to allow in-person learning, the actual approval of those applications and the submission of those applications are going to be based on the data and a risk assessment of whether or not the data or in the schools have the proper protocols in place to ensure the safety of the teachers and the students. So data is definitely being used in all of that decision making at the schools and university levels.
Sure.
It,
And I'll actually add,
but
sorry, Phil, please,
Kevin,
please.
yes, I just wanted to say
Oh, sorry.
in Burbank, we're certainly using data to help inform policy decisions for us and help inform enforcement decisions. As an example, I will brag a little bit in that the city of Burbank really carries about half the case rates of any of the other cities in LA County of our like size. So it's really gone a long way to help us. Data around, as an example, data around adherence to our mask orders. And where people are not following those mask orders is really driving where we're sending folks for reminders as opposed to enforcement. We really just started real enforcement with penalties very recently, but over the past month or so, data about where people are not actually following the recommendations is what we use to find where we would send folks to actually remind people to please mask up when you're in public.
Sure. So in fact, from county perspective, because when it comes to public health, even though Pasadena and Long Beach have their own public health, but as a county, we do aggregate. And I think part of the question was about the school reopening as well as other decisions which we make. So how we do it is as a part of our recovery metrics. So there are about 20 different metrics which we track in 5 different areas: hospitalization, testing, contact tracing, death, and a PPV supply. So these are the 5 areas in which we have a 20 metrics which we track. And based on the progress we made in those 20 metrics, and that's how we have a phase-wise approach to reopen the different locations as well as different agencies. So to give an example, like some of the metrics are like percentage of COVID cases that have follow-up investigation opened within a 1 day of assignment, number of deaths past 7-day average, number of hospitalization patient past 3 days average. So as we keep on seeing that, if the trend is going downward, and that helps us make that phases decision. And as you see the controlled way we are reopening, that's behind the scene, those recovery metrics are being used by the board of supervisors and all other leaders to make that decision.
Jagjit, I just wanted to add that, so we aggregate state, county, and city level data for our COVID dashboard and recovery dashboard. One of the things that's changed recently for all of us is that the state has also put some mandates around not just the aggregate case fatality rate and spread, but also for our particularly underserved communities, our communities most affected by COVID. And I think that's important that we can't do it when the best community rates are achieving what we want, but it has to be when all community rates are achieving that.
Yeah, well, that's a very good point, Jean. Andrew, are there any other questions?
Yeah, we have 2 more questions and you have about 4 more minutes. So
Okay.
maybe just one up
Okay.
here. How can government agencies help create insights to the concerns of homelessness and housing issues?
I can take a stab at that. So in Long
Sure.
Beach, we have roughly 2,000 people who are experiencing homelessness, and we do an annual point in time count to determine that number. And this last year, we always present that data to publicly to our community about. We aggregate the data and we present like information about homelessness, like kind of a state of homelessness in our community for people to understand that. So this last year, we wanted to generate better insights about that, because that's one of the 55% of our residents think that's one of our most severe problems. And we had over 200 people participate in a survey where we asked them if they're for their insights about the information that we were compiling and presenting, and for any recommendations on how to improve it, questions that weren't being answered, information that could help maybe put a face to the issues, and so people have a better understanding of the drivers of homelessness. One of the drivers being lack of affordable housing, for instance. Mental illness could be another one. And based on that survey, that's going to inform how we present our homelessness data going forward, as well as we're going to be creating personas of people experiencing homelessness that we can use to educate our community, so that people realize that these are people's fathers and daughters and sons and brothers and sisters, and that also we can also educate people on the good work that we're doing here at the City of Long Beach to combat homelessness and have it be fleeting instead of a permanent state for our residents.
And I think that's amazing work, Leah. And I'll just add to that. We're looking particularly around COVID at the vulnerability for people getting evicted. So we're in the midst of distributing $103 million in rent support for renters who are really struggling. And so understanding the neighborhoods where that's impacting, understanding regular eviction rates, and then having an eviction moratorium, which I know many other cities do too, means that we have the ability to kind of control it. But at some point, things are going to start to open up again. And so we're doing some more in-depth data analysis in partnership actually with San Jose around the eviction vulnerabilities and rates, and kind of what we can do to stem that, and how we can kind of work ahead to be able to make sure that we're focused on rental rights, landlord support, because they also have mortgages to pay, and just making sure that everybody can stay in housing so we don't even exacerbate our housing problem worse.
Sure. Thanks, Jean. So in the interest of time, maybe Andrew, we can take last question.
Yeah. What areas of county and city IT departments are embracing digital workers and robotic process automation? Please share your efforts and plans for the future.
I would love to take that. So why I said it, because actually just this month, we actually deployed 2 RPA projects for our public health department. So COVID, actually, I'm personally a big fan and advocate of RPA technologies, and have been educating the county departments on this technology and how it can help improve the productivity of our employees. And COVID actually has brought that urgency, where the RP can help a lot. And all the processes which COVID generated, these are new ad hoc processes for which we never planned the resources. So this is an additional piece of work which came onto our employees, be it the interview data or be it a testing data we need to collect, and we don't have our systems for those. So all that data which comes from a different sources, we have to feed into our integrated systems. And sometimes it is coming from a scanned files, or it could be a paper files, or it could be a separate Excel sheets. And there's a lot of manual work which goes into it. And I really feel proud to say that in our Department of Public Health, we were actually able to deploy bots to capture that information. And especially for interviews, hospitalization, and testing, we were able to deploy bots, and the bots are actually processing all those files which we are getting through emails to different clinics and all. So bots are in production right now, and we are really looking forward to continue expanding bots. And DPH has set a great example within county. And based on that, other departments like district attorney, probation, even our internal services department, they are standing up their own RPA as a service. And our vision is to actually enable the RPA factory, because these are a very quick projects which we can enable for our departments. So we are forming RPA factory where we can identify the use case and quickly churn these projects and don't have to wait for months and months for the last transformation to happen. Anyone would like to add anything? But yes, RPA is definitely a top of our focus area.
Well, because at the city of Burbank, we've been in a hiring freeze since COVID hit, and so a key thing for us has been to find opportunities to really take on some of that manual effort that would have otherwise been done by individuals, to allow us to stay afloat, during the hiring freeze. So it's really been key to us. Has been we've had multiple projects that have gone live this year, and we're looking to expand it more in the next year.
Same with Pasadena. We
Perfect.
RPA for sure, and machine learning and other skill sets to help deal with employees who are being repositioned into other projects. We also have a soft hiring freeze going on in Pasadena, and just efficiency. There's so many manual processes that can be completed, things that are happening over and over and over again. We are targeting, and we're looking at how we can deploy a lot of the same things, especially with JD and the county leading the way. We're following.
Perfect. I think that's a great partner opportunity for all of us. So we'd love to expand RPA as much as possible in county and help our employees. Perfect. I think we are 3 minutes over. Really appreciate all of your time, Leah, Kevin, Jeanne, Phil. Thanks a lot for your time, and thanks for sharing insights on what's all innovation which we are doing on the ground and how data is helping our business leaders make right decisions. Appreciate that. Andrew, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I pasted the last two questions in the chat. Thank you for attending this panelist session, and I appreciate all the attendees for the questions and interactions during this session. Please contact them if you have further questions regarding this topic or your question didn't get answered. I'm sure they're all available in the WOVA app that you can, and you have their contact that you can discuss items of your interest. Please provide your comment and feedback to us or the organizers on the community board, or start a discussion there to connect with others in the DataCon LA 2020 community. Thank you for joining today's presentation, and I hope you gained some insights from this panel. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for being a part of this year's DataCon LA.
Thank you,
Andrew.
everyone.
Thanks, Subhash.